Hi there everybody, it's Verity here from inkywaterflower.com. Thank you for joining me today for our Project Blog Hop videos. So we are doing a masculine theme for this month. So that's myself, Heather, Jill and Jez, the four of us do a weekly share on our blogs, and then once a month we do a themed sort of challenge, if you like. So this time we're going to do a masculine theme, which isn't my go-to kind of card at all, really. I always find them a little bit tricky to make, but nonetheless, we have used Mountain Air as the stamp set. This is a stamp set in the annual catalogue. It carried over, which I was quite delighted about because I do really like the stamp set. So it's just it's putting that masculine spin on it that I find tricky. So we've got Mountain Air there. So I thought I'd just do sort of a masculine birthday card. So I've dropped in a sentiment actually from Art Gallery. So it's got these really nice sort of, you know, blocky sort of font on it, so it's not all swirly and fancy. So that's where I got the sentiment from. But that's so this is a sort of starting point for the card we're going to make today. A few bits on here I don't like because I raised up the panel on the front, and I just don't like all that bulk that's ended up in there. So we're going to just do that slightly differently. And we've just got a couple of different colours that we're going to use as well, just to give you a bit of a different look on the card. So in the background there is a bit of ink blending, and then this one uses smoky slate there for the mountains, and then I've got soft succulent and mint macaron in the background there, and then these ones were pear pizzazz, and I stamped the sentiment in even evergreen. So just going to use a slightly different combination of colours to do that, and then I've got some embossing on the background there, that sort of wood grain. I think it's called the Timber 3D embossing folder. So I've only recently purchased that. So so like I say, this is the sort of leap point, and then we're going to just change it just a little teeny bit. And I'm not going to do all the die cutting on camera. I've already got all that stuff done already. Okay, so I've got some pieces of basic white cardstock to stamp on. Okay, so the stamps themselves are actually reversible, which means that you can stamp the detailed part, but you can also flip it over and do the more solid image if you want to. So we're not doing that today. I'm just using the image as you know, the textured image as we would do normally. So on the original sample I said we used smoky slate, but this time round we're going to use grey granite. Okay, I've just got my ink pads just off to one side there, so I've got them to hand. Okay, so large stamp. This is an eye block. You could, of course, if you prefer, use the Stamparatus, but these are actually really easy to stamp with. These images, they stamp really well, and an eye block is actually quite nice in terms of its height. It's quite nice to grip, even though it's a larger block. So this stamp is just going to go on there, and just some firm pressure all over that, and that will stamp beautifully. It's a really nice image, and I think you can already see how that's going to turn out. And it looks like it's got the snow on it, which is sort of cool. So that's our mountains, and then we've got this tree line stamp, which again is reversible, so you could do something with that as well. Just forgive me a second, I've just got to move some stuff around because I've got various projects on the go at the moment. The desk is a little bit crowded. Evening Evergreen is what we're going to use next. And we're going to drop this in on the lower portion of this piece of card. Okay, get that well linked, and again, look, it stamps beautifully, and this block is really, really good for this. Okay, the blocks are available as a bundle actually, so if you actually buy the stamp block bundle, you get one of every size, including the enormous F block. And then you save 10% on the combined price. The F block's huge, but it's you can use it as sort of like a watercolour palette or something like that as well. So just wiping that off because I need to stamp with this one again. But we're going to use a separate piece of card, and I'll explain why that's necessary in a minute. This piece of, ooh, got green ink all over me. Ooh, going Hulk. This piece of card is about 3.5, I think, wide. It doesn't actually matter. I just made it narrower because I want to use this piece as it is, and it's 2.5 deep, 3.5 by 2.5. And I'm going to stamp this image again, but this time in soft succulent. And it doesn't matter if we don't go all the way to the end on this because we only want part of the stamp. I'm going to put it as high up on there as we can. Let's do it there. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so we've just got part of that tree line in place there. That was soft succulent. Just grab a, just wipe off the excess ink off this mat. So that's that bit done. And then I've just got literally a scrap of paper so that we can stamp the trees. So there's 2 stamps for the trees. There's this sort of double tree and the single tree. Okay, we're using mint macaron for that. Now, I don't know whether you can see on the camera. Oh, there, right. Doesn't look like there's much detail in that stamp at all, right? But you watch when we stamp it. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Just going to try and use those use my cardstock economically. Look how it stamps. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So we're going for 3 of these. Just going to pop a big one in, and then I know where I think I'll have room for that down the bottom then, you see. Yeah, plenty of room. So I've done 3 of the single tree and 1 of the double trees, okay? And then what we need to do is die cut all of that out. But like I say, rather than you watch me do that, we're going to fast forward that a second. But before we just move on, just to finish off the stamping, I'm going to just grab this little piece of cardstock, which must be about 1/2 inch, yeah, 1/2 inch, and bring back in the Evening Evergreen to stamp this little sentiment, this happy birthday from the art gallery set. So I'm just going to pop that in. Just going to get over the top of that. I think that's roughly right. There we go. Possibly a little high, but I think you'll forgive me just because, you know, lining things up whilst I've got the camera over the head isn't easy. So we'll just pop that to one side. I don't need to do any die cutting on that. It's just going to, we're going to snip that in a bit. Okay, so when it comes to all of this stuff that needs die cutting, these are pretty self-explanatory. There are dies that coordinate with those. Quite obvious that they're going to cut out just like so. Similarly, the mountains as well. That's a die in itself, and that will cut out those mounting portions. Okay, but the tree line, oops, let me just grab that. The tree line die is just cuts this top edge, it doesn't cut a bottom edge, so you're going to end up with this still all intact with just a shaped top to it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so like I say, I've already done most of that. I've done all of that. Well, I've done all of those bits that I've just described. Okay, so there's our dark tree line, the mountains, all the same colours. I've just, okay, so these can just layer up to make our sort of forest scene. Okay, so those bits are done, ready to assemble onto our card when we are ready for that. Next thing I'm going to pull in are the diorama dies. What have I done with the packet? The packet is here. Now these have been in the catalogue for some time, and I've had them for some time but not really used them. So I actually took some inspiration from the Stampin' Up catalogue, and whilst they've used some different products, I did like the idea of having the scene in one of these diorama shapes. So I've selected one that fits nicely on there and just taped that into place, and that is a piece of cardstock that is basically a card front. So this is 4 inches wide by 5 3/4 high. So I'm just going to run that through the die cut machine. Okay, and the idea being that we're going to get our nice a nice aperture that we're going to build the scene into. Okay, so there's the die cutting done. Okay, and we've got this interesting shape that we could do something with at some point. Okay, just peel away the die carefully on there. So that's what we're left with, but we also want to add the texture. So we're going to do that with, like I say, the Timber 3D embossing folder. Okay, so this is a new purchase for me. Now the wood grain itself runs sort of left to right on the folder. Okay, so you obviously, depending on how you want your wood grain to run, I'm going to pop my panel in sideways there so that the wood grain goes up and down. Okay, pop that down, and because it's a 3D embossing folder, we're going to use our number 1 base platform with the number 4 dark grey plate. So all of that info, let me just pop that to one side, all on your base plate, all the little sandwiches there. So like I say, for 3D embossing folders, it's there, number 1 plate, the base platform, your embossing folder of cardstock, and your dark grey number 4 plate goes on top. So nice and clear pictorial instructions with the words across there, and it is in French and German, and I think this one's still got Japanese on it because Stampin' Up used to have a Japanese market. It doesn't any longer, but it's got it in all the languages on there as well. So completely universal. Okay. So whilst I'm a demonstrator in the UK, the Europeans can order from UK demonstrators as well. So we've got this lovely piece now that's as an aperture, but with the texture on there as well. Okay, so that's those bits done. So I'm just going to pull in a white card base. So I cut and score my own card bases from the A4 cardstock. So this is 4 1/8 of an inch wide by 5 7/8. That's where the score line is. And this panel will fit just over there with just a skinny little border on there. So what we want to do is drop in our sort of skyline, if you like. So I did just sort of lay the pieces down and sort of gauge how far down that sky needed to come, if you like. And I just want to make sure that this piece doesn't end up above that aperture line. So long as that's there. So I just need a bit of ink just in this portion here. Now I've got my two blending brushes here that I use for my dark blue and my light blue inks, and to be honest, I'm not even going to re-ink them. I'm just going to pop on some colour in that general vicinity straight onto the card base. Now that's a little bit light, so I'm just going to touch the ink pad again with the light ink just to add a bit more to that. Better to go easy and add more if necessary. Okay, so I just want a hint of some sky in the background there, really, just to cover that portion. Okay, and that should be fine, even if it just fades away into little bits. I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. So what we can do now is we'll just start sort of almost constructing this, oh gosh, this scene almost without the card at all. So I'm just going to layer these together. I'm just going to use little spit spots of some wet glue, actually, because we're dealing with some little bits and pieces and I just don't want to get it on my surface. So this silicone sheet is really good, very inexpensive. I've got a few of them actually. So they just sort of sit in the drawer and I can just pull them out as and when I need them. So it just means that I've got some flexibility just to layer these up. I don't need to worry about glue oozing out potentially on the back there. And I'm just going to put a little bit. You don't need a lot of this stuff, it's really strong. And I think the reason why I kind of avoid using it is because I kind of get into a mess with it. So the trick is not to use too much. Now, as you probably gather, because we've stamped and die cut with the same stamp and die, what we don't want to do is line that up so that they actually sort of mirror those. I want to sort of move it along a bit. So I'm going to shove that along to there, which means I can still cut it down and I still have my mountains visible. Okay, but I can still see both layers of the tree line. Okay, hope that made sense. Okay, and then I purposely made, see how that's I don't know whether you can see that the glue sort of ended up on the background there, and that would have been on my surface, but that's going to dry clear and it'll just rub off that silicone sheet. It's really easy to clean up. So this bottom portion going to fit there, but that's also a gauge on how wide those things need to be, so I can just trim those off with some scissors, and they're going to fit in that aperture without overhanging. Okay, doesn't have to be too precise, it just gives you an idea of where it's going to lie. Okay, so that's our little mountain scene that we can now place onto the card base. And it's sometimes, I think it's useful just to, I was just going to put just the tinsiest pencil mark just where that is, so that I can again pop a bit of glue on the back of there. Sort of central it up. Can see my sky portion there as well. And then before I press that down completely, I'm just going to lay that over the top, and that's great. That bottom part isn't going to show. That's brilliant. So I'm just going to press that down, and that will just take a couple of minutes. Well, not even that probably. It's very fast drying, especially if you use it sparingly. So all that hideousness and stuff is all going to be covered by the aperture on the top. Okay, so now my my quandary is about how I adhere this. Now I'm thinking I'm just going to do it flat this time round. So there is a bit of bulk behind there, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference to the way that the card sits. So again, because of the texture and everything else we've got on there, we'll use the wet glue. Okay, but we want to make sure that we get in right around the edge, so we'll just make sure that that's covered and near where the edge of the actual aperture itself is, so it doesn't lift excessively. And again, this is going to give us a little bit of time to be able to slide that into place and get the border right. And then just press that down firmly. So I opted not to add colour to this. It was tempting, but I decided just to leave it white and let the rest of it pop out. Similarly, I didn't add any ink at the bottom here, but because we've got the trees to add in the foreground, you kind of don't really notice that very much at all. So here are our trees. So these guys I am going to pop on with some dimensionals, just to add that little bit of a pop to them. So I'm going to just flip those over, and I'm actually going to bring in the minis for these. They fit quite nicely top and bottom on those sort of skinnier trees there. And then, because they're out, we may as well just use them on this bigger one. We could use the larger dimensionals, but that should do it. I'm actually going to place the larger trees first, and then we'll pop the smaller ones on around it. So we'll just take off all those backings so it's all ready. Okay, so this one I kind of want kind of central-ish. Okay, and then we'll pop in our other ones. I'm kind of covering the edge of that aperture a little bit as well. And I don't really want them all at the same level, so I'll just brought that down just a little bit so it's not in line with this one here. And then this one we might make a little higher. Just space them out a little bit. Okay, so there we are. That's our scene there Okay, so yeah, the white is showing through a little bit, but I think it's all right. It's up to you if you feel like you would like to change that. And then we'll just nip off the edge of this at a funky angle because it's easier than cutting it straight. And that's going to pop in across there as well, so that's going to hide a bit of that white actually. So we're going to need a dimensional at that end and maybe a bit of wet glue. As we're using wet glue rather than bringing in anything else. Sorry, that's just down here, isn't it? So I've just popped a dimensional at that end to support it where the edge of the trees are there, and then that bit of wet glue will just secure it wherever it hits the trees there. So that's perfect. So that's going to dry and that'll be nice and secure, and that is it. Okay, that's the card done with the original sample. Okay, so I think the flat version, if you like, has worked out better in terms of how it feels. This just doesn't feel nice at all. I like this better. I probably like those colours better, but it's all sort of choice for you. But I hope you've enjoyed that, and it's given you some idea on making some masculine cards. I personally don't find them easy, and I'm sure other people don't either. So it'd be lovely to see what else everybody else has made as well. So do click the links. I probably should have said that at the start, shouldn't I? In the description there's going to be a link to my blog. And in that blog there are links to all the other blogs that are in today's hop, so do check them out. Get some more ideas from the rest of the team. Thanks ever so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.